I had no idea the British press was so bigoted.
This One's Wife. Has the Pat Tillman Award torpedoed the Sussexes? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. As you know, last week was the ESPY Awards. Harry was slated to receive the Pat Tillman Award in relation to his work with Invictus. It has been suggested that a payment was made to receive this award in order to try and bolster the failing popularity of the Sussexes and possibly to shore up Harry's visa application, which may come under further scrutiny, particularly if there is a change of government, as is anticipated, come later this year. The fact is that when Harry was described as being a recipient of this award, this resulted in there being a backlash. Pat Tillman, seen as an all-American hero for his decision to forego a lucrative NFL career to defend his country by going to Afghanistan after the 9/11 attacks, is viewed very much as the embodiment of patriotism and humility. Harry, increasingly seen as a controversial and divisive figure, was not viewed to be a worthy recipient. Pat Tillman's mother criticised the award. Certain public figures spoke out against it. There was backlash by way of petition, which was signed by tens of thousands of people, urging ESPN to reconsider the award. There was considerable criticism across social media, which was picked up by mainstream media. And in anticipation of this, there was speculation that Harry might not attend the awards and that there would be a video acceptance. Some suggested that he might do the right thing and turn it down. As it was, he didn't. He not only accepted the award, but he turned up. And he did so with this one's wife in tow. Tao was in tow. As I correctly predicted, her narcissism could not resist the opportunity to come and drink up all of the fuel by way of reflected glory and to utilise Harry's win as her own by virtue of character trait acquisition. The event provided us with further opportunity to explain this one's wife's narcissism in action, highlighting the way that she clapped like a seal, clinged onto Harry, and also left part way through, albeit at a glacial pace, as she was very rude and interrupted proceedings by continuing to interact with people as she left the auditorium, resulting in people gesticulating for them to Foxtrot Oscar and calling out at them. This also provides an opportunity to consider that the brouhaha and disgust that has surrounded Harry's award as to whether this has actually torpedoed the Sussexes, and in particular in relation to their status in the United States. As you know, this channel is about narcissism and psychopathy, and there is a substantial section of videos that are about this one's wife, principally because she provides so much material to analyse by virtue of her need to pump out PR puff pieces, and she's spoken about and broadcast and filmed and written about by many media outlets. This wealth of material provides me with tremendous scope for explaining it all to many people who are interested in her. There are other channels, of course, part of what is often described as the Megxit community, that talk about this one's wife. Some do so from the perspective of their outrage in relation to her behaviour. Some do so in a more gossipy way, scrutinising what she wears, how she looks, etc. Others do so because they want to highlight her repeated poor behaviours. Others originally did so in relation to describing body language, but then have moved on to generally talking about her as a whole. Some undertake deep dive into her and Harry's activities, joining the dots and suggesting that there is a bigger picture at work. There are various different angles, but what all of these channels tend to have in common is a general disapproval, sometimes moving through to outright vitriol towards this one's wife. And as a consequence of that, these various commentators naturally are broadcasting material virtually in the majority to people who have a similar mindset, i.e., they don't like this one's wife and they want to hear an analysis about the latest problematic behaviour that she is engaged in. To an extent, one is preaching to the converted. It's therefore important to point out that this can create an inflated sense of her unpopularity. If you're watching a channel that is watched mainly by people who don't like this one's wife, most of the comments will reinforce the fact that her behaviour, whilst it's accurate, is poor. Most of the comments will be against her. You will find the occasional sugar trying to support her, but they're in small number. And therefore it could give a skewed perspective of this one's wife, because in essence you're frequenting places which are critical of her, and that could cause you to have a skewed vision of her lack of popularity. That's not to say that she isn't unpopular, but it might be the case that she's not as unpopular as you might realise. She's hugely unpopular amongst the forums that exist that don't like her, that criticise her. But do you frequent other channels that might be supportive of her? Do you look at other news outlets in relation to her in order to get a wider view as to, is she as unpopular as she's certainly portrayed in certain sections of social media and mainstream media? What I've often done is, when I've been speaking to my clients, many of whom are based in the United States, I asked them towards the end of the consultation what they think about this one's wife. And for many, the response is not interested. This is interesting of itself. There are plenty of people that don't like her, we know that. But as you know, my channel has videos about other famous people, other aspects of narcissism, other aspects of the dynamic. And there are those viewers on my channel who aren't particularly interested in this one's wife. And therefore, it's rather useful to ascertain, albeit anecdotally, what the view is of those people who are not perhaps as caught up in the whole concept of this one's wife and Megxit. And the overriding response of those who ordinarily wouldn't watch those videos and comment about her is they're not particularly interested in her. They're disinterested. And this is of itself interesting because, of course, this one's wife is trying to portray herself as hugely famous and well regarded around the world and in the United States. But it seems to me that the prevailing attitude, at least until recently, in relation to this one's wife in the United States was, there's a very small segment that supports her, there's a larger segment that dislikes her, but the majority aren't interested in her. She's not as well known as she would like to think that she is. People will have heard about her, but that's about it. They've got other things that they're interested in. They don't read about her, they're not interested in watching videos about her or news items about her. And therefore, she hasn't permeated the United States in the way that she thought she has. Thus, if we were to sort of put it in percentage terms, it could be argued that she has 5% support, 25% criticism, and the remaining 70% are of the view, not really interested in her. However, it seems to me that there has been a shift. That the incident around Pat Tillman has caused those who hitherto were not interested in this one's wife and Harry to now turn against them. That they knew about Pat Tillman, that they respected his sacrifice, that they recognised the integrity of that award. And when they have learned about the fact that Harry was nominated for it, and that he and this one's wife turned up and behaved the way that they did at the awards ceremony, that has offended people who hitherto had no real opinion about the gruesome twosome. It seems to me that there has been a shift in attitudes, that it has brought them greater prominence, but not in the way that they would have wanted. And therefore, it seems to me, based upon the discussions that I have had with people, that before there were a lot of people who really weren't interested in them. And now, because of what has happened in relation to the Pat Tillman Award, many people's attitude has now shifted from not interested to active dislike and disapproval of them. If there's one country in the world where you seek success on a huge scale, or allowing you to have success on a huge scale, it's the United States. For instance, British pop bands, it was always talked about cracking the States. For certain actors, if they were interested, it was breaking into Hollywood. This is because it's such a rich nation, has a large population, and also because it provides such a platform for worldwide fame. Accordingly, to a narcissist such as this one's wife, cracking the United States is hugely important to her. After she failed in the United Kingdom, has pissed off Australia, has annoyed South Africa, has irritated Nigeria, got up the nose of Canada, it was important for her to try and crack the United States. This would mean she would have access to a much larger population, larger sums of money, larger opportunity for popularity, all of which, of course, segues into the prime aims. She was failing. She was failing because if anybody did have a view about her, it tended to be unpopular, and the bulk of individuals weren't particularly interested in her. But to my mind, and I'd be interested to receive your views about this, I see that what has happened in relation to the Pat Tillman Award has tipped that balance. That those who hitherto had no real interest in her now dislike her and Harry, and therefore that the number has moved less from those that are disinterested into bolstering the ranks of those that disapprove of this one's wife and Harry. And on the basis that that is accurate, I don't see that there is any comeback from that. That this may well be regarded as a watershed moment, whereby the momentum has not so much shifted, but has gathered momentum. That the slow burning dislike of this one's wife and Harry has now increased as a consequence of the behaviour surrounding Pat Tillman, so that that larger amount of individuals who are not interested has become smaller than those that dislike her and Harry. And with that increased momentum, heightening their unpopularity amongst more and more people, one sees it as now impossible for them to turn that around. And thus, the actions and behaviours associated with Pat Tillman have torpedoed the Sussexes. Do you agree with my observations and analysis in relation to this? Do you agree how the narcissist's behaviour has resulted in a tipping point so that more people have moved away from being disinterested to active disapproval of their activity? That this is a demonstration of the collateral consequences of the behaviour of the narcissist? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.